High Court turns down the request to compel the president to accept the bill for possible assent. We'll get some reactions.
Also, later on this program, NDC calls for immediate termination of SML contracts with GRA and retrieval of illegal payments to the company.
And all is set for the judicial by-election tomorrow, with the Electoral Commission promising free, fair and transparent polls. We here on your Election Command Center would have a conversation on campaign trail. Stay with us.
Well, the EC is fighting off accusations of scheming to favor the candidate of the governing party. Stay with us.
These plus the latest in business, sports and entertainment coming up over the next 1 hour 30 minutes here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're also on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. As always, we're very, very interactive. Share your thoughts with us on Facebook at 3FM 927 and also on X Spaces at 3FM 927. We'll give you reactions as well from the NDC's Moment of Truth, as they have indicated that the next NDC government will not recognize illegal contracts signed by the current administration. All these and more here on Hot Edition. Let's get into the summary of the news now, and Grace Samoa-Jiman is here. Grace.
Well, Alfred, let's start the summaries from the Ashanti region. And with less than 24 hours to the judicial by-election, the Electoral Commission is urging electorates to trust the Commission, as they will ensure the voting is done on a free, fair and transparent manner, reacting to allegations by the camp of one of the independent candidates that some ballot boxes have been stuffed in an attempt to rig the election to favor the NPP candidate. The Commission asked the public to ignore that claim, adding the system cannot allow rigging. The Opposition National Democratic Congress, NDC, has called for the immediate termination of all contractual agreements between Strategic Management Limited, SML, and the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, without further delay. According to the party, the Revenue Assurance Agreement did not have parliamentary approval and was therefore illegal and null and void. The NDC wants any payments made on the basis of the so-called agreement to be retrieved. Before we go, the Mental Health Authority has called for the 1% COVID-19 levy to be channeled into the funding of mental health services. Speaking at the inaugural launch of the month of May as Mental Health Month, Board Chair of the authority, Estelle Appiah, says the move will help the authority address some of the funding gaps affecting their operations. For years, there remains limited financial risk protection for people living with mental health conditions in the country, posing a significant threat to achieving the universal health coverage target. That's it for the summaries, Alfred.
Thank you so much. This morning is on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Hot Edition. We're live on 3FM 927 on Facebook and also on X Spaces at 3FM 927. Your thoughts, views, comments and opinions are welcome. Let's get into the details of what happened in court earlier today with respect to the mandamus application by Nelson Roxin Dafiamepo.
Yes, and lawyers for the Member of Parliament for South Dine Roxin Nelson Dafiamepo have indicated their intention to go to the Court of Appeal after an Accra High Court dismissed an application seeking to compel the president to declare his intent to sign or otherwise the anti-LGBTQ bill after receiving it from Parliament. Now, the Southdown MP, Roxin Nelson Dafiamepo, filed the action in court, arguing that the president is duty-bound to receive the bill from Parliament. Chief State Attorney Sylvia Adesu contended that the High Court would not be overreaching its mandate if it interfered by granting the application, since the matter between Parliament and the Executive was still pending, citing that the bill was yet to be assented to. She also indicated that there were 2 applications pending before the Supreme Court challenging the passage of the bill, and therefore urged the court to turn down the mandamus application. Alfred, there's some more on this.
Indeed, and this one we've been following quite closely. But in her ruling earlier today, Presiding Judge Ellen Miracle explained that per the processes in the docket, the High Court had jurisdiction to determine the matter. Indeed, citing her discretionary powers, Justice Miracle dismissed the mandamus application after indicating that the Supreme Court should be allowed to rule on the two suits before it. Now, she added that it will be inappropriate to compel the Speaker of Parliament and the President to act on the anti-gay bill with the pending suits before the APS Court. Nick Papo Samuado is counsel for Nelson Roxon Dafempo, expressed disappointment at this ruling. He's joining us on the telephone for a quick conversation on this matter. Counsel, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here on Hot Edges.
Good evening, Counsel. Good evening to your wonderful and
right, Nick. Yes. If you could reposition yourself for me, I'm losing.
Oh, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Perfect. I can hear you now clearly. Okay. Now, yes, indeed, the case that, at least based on the readings from the court today, the presiding judge, Ellen Miracle, did agree with you that the High Court had jurisdiction to determine the matter. But then again, in expressing her discretion, she dismissed this case because there are two suits before the Supreme Court on this matter. Why exactly do you think that this could have been a different outcome from what the judge ruled today?
Clearly, even though she says that the ruling is being typed, at least for those of us in the court, this is what she said. And we need to bring proper context into what she said. Number one, she said that beyond the issue of jurisdiction, she said we had met the legal criteria for the grant of the mandamus. However, it is a discretionary remedy. So yes, you've met the legal requirement, but it is a discretionary remedy. And she stated that there are two instances where the court, even when you have met the legal requirement, can still say that because it's a discretionary remedy, it may not grant it. One of it is if it feels it is appropriate in the given circumstance. And then she went to the first relief that we sought, which was to the effect that the Parliament had properly passed the LGBTI bill. She said there is one of the suits, which she distinguished. She said one of the suits is challenging the procedure by which the LGBTI bill was passed. Therefore, if she were to exercise her discretion to grant, because remember she said we had met the legal requirement for granting. However, if she were to grant, and the Supreme Court made a decision that rendered or said that the process by which the LGBTI bill had been passed was unconstitutional, it will render her decision nugatory. And so, at the moment, she will not exercise her discretion in her favor. She wants to wait for the Supreme Court to come out with its decision. Then, if we think that it is necessary for us to come back, we come back. But this is where we differ with her in her rule.
Why exactly?
We are happy that we have met the legal requirement. However, we think that she should exercise her discretion in favor of upholding the Constitution at the moment, because there is a live matter before the court. When will the Supreme Court make that decision? Clearly, the Supreme Court's jurisdiction is different from the High Court's jurisdiction. So that is the focus of our pending appeal. We are filing an appeal tomorrow in respect of the exercise of discretion, because she said there was no issue with the legal requirements. We have met the legal threshold. However, she has a discretion. And so we say that her exercise of the discretion was not fair and reasonable within the context of the given case. And so we will appeal that decision.
But in exercising her discretion, when there were two suits on the same matter before the Supreme Court, wouldn't she have also been, as it were, using her discretion to maybe predetermine the outcome of the two suits before?
So that is the way of looking at it. So that's what she's saying, that, look, if she grants, so her point was that one of our reliefs, you understand, was in respect of the fact that, and it was actually a relief that had been admitted by the Attorney General, that, look, the process and procedure by which the law had been passed was lawful. There was no problem. She said one of the Supreme Court cases was challenging the constitutional procedure by which the law had been passed. Therefore, if she exercised her discretion and granted the application, and the Supreme Court came back to say that the procedure was unconstitutional, it means her decision is negative. And so, yes, you've made a threshold for me to grant you that. That's the legal requirement. You've met the criteria. There was no issue about, the Attorney General was arguing about jurisdiction and the fact that there were conditions, there was a right to be, there was a request, all those things were thrown out. But the court said it is a discretion. Yes, you may have met the legal right, but the discretion is still mine. In the given circumstances, I will not grant that discretion for you because I believe that if I do so and the Supreme Court rules, it will render my decision negative. So our focus of our appeal is in respect of the exercise of the discretion. We are saying that if we have made the legal requirement, then the court should rather grant it in our favor. After all, how does it harm the president if it granted in our favor and the court declares the law unconstitutional? That will not be the first time a law has been declared unconstitutional. We've had laws that are in effect. And then, even recently, the Citizenship Act. It is when the act has even been passed, then people go to court and say that this section is unconstitutional. The court will rule. Whether it takes 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, the court will rule. But what we don't want is a situation where a precedent is being set that a president can decide that based upon an act of somebody going to parliament. You see the dangerous precedent that is set. Imagine any time there's a bill. Imagine the parliament passes the Appropriations Act. The Appropriations Act is the budget of the country. And then somebody says that, well, he's not happy with certain appropriations in the budget. So he's gone to the Supreme Court to challenge the constitutionality of the appropriations bill. If the Supreme Court does not sit on that matter for the next 1 year, it means Ghana cannot spend money in this country. That is a dangerous precedent. And so we don't believe that the president should be given the opportunity to behave in the manner that he's behaving in respect of a parliamentary process. You understand? That is why we feel that if we had met the legal threshold, the court should exercise its discretion in our favor. After all, if the Supreme Court rules that the case is unconstitutional, fine. Then if the case the rules that the act was passed unconstitutionally, what it will do is to set it aside. But at the end of the day, who gets hurt? So yes, there's a balance in there, but we think that it will be more dangerous to allow this president to prevail than to ensure that the president accepts the bill and proceeds with whether he will assent to it or not. So we are focused on our appeal in respect of the exercise of the discretion, because there's no issue about the fact that the court has a jurisdiction, the court has exercised the jurisdiction. You understand? The court says we have met the threshold, but it will not exercise this discretion in our favor. So our focus is on the exercise of the court's discretion. And so we are not entirely unhappy with the decision. At least the burden, in our opinion, when we go on appeal, and we are going to seek an expedited hearing of the appeal, is that so long as this matter is live and the Supreme Court has not heard it, either today and tomorrow, the Supreme Court comes out with a decision. In fact, if tomorrow the Supreme Court comes out with a decision on the constitutionality, on unconstitutionality of the bill, we will go back to the court to the mandamus if the president refuses to act. Because the president is only saying that he's waiting for the Supreme Court to act. And we also don't want him to take forever. So we will also pursue this as an angle to ensure that the president acts.
Mr. Samadu, so
yes.
Obviously, Beatrice here, you're going to the Court of Appeal to appeal this very decision from this judge. You want to deal with the basics that this is part of the process, that when Parliament passes a bill, it has to go to the President to decide on whether or not to assent to it. Again, you're bringing in the explanation of the judge, eventually saying that it was based on the discretion of the court. How do you intend to build on what has happened at this level to ensure that you get what you desire at the next?
It makes our work, I think, less burdensome. If the court said it didn't even have jurisdiction to hear the matter because there were 2 matters pending in the Supreme Court, that is a heavier burden to carry. But if the court says that in the given circumstance, there's a case in the Supreme Court, we say, number one, the Supreme Court's jurisdiction has nothing to do with the High Court's jurisdiction. The High Court's jurisdiction is to deal with the mandamus. The Supreme Court has exclusive jurisdiction when it comes to interpretation and enforcement of the Constitution. So if we are dealing with a mandamus application and you say we have met the legal threshold, why would you not exercise your discretion in favor of us and in favor of the Constitution? After all, if the Supreme Court comes and says the bill was passed unconstitutionally, it will strike it down. And that will be the end of the matter. Then it means that the act itself will no longer be operational. But the dangerous precedent for us is for a president to be allowed to decide which bills he will accept and which bills he will not accept. That one, in my opinion, is a dangerous precedent to build. And that's the one we are not comfortable with. And that's why we want to test this all the way, if necessary, to the Supreme Court.
Others will say that this should be a simple matter per legal instrument or constitutional provisions, that when a bill is passed, it goes through to the presidency and eventually it is decided upon as to whether or not it is assented to become...
Precisely. It is actually a very simple, straightforward matter.
As a law...
A bill is passed. A bill is passed. The bill goes to the president. The president can decide. And there are provisions in there that, look, he's uncomfortable with A, B, C, and D. So he sends the bill back to Parliament or to the Council of State. That is within. But for the president to say that I will not even accept the bill from Parliament is clearly unconstitutional.
So now my question...
That is the problem that we have.
My question, how do you interpret how this whole thing is unfolding, of course, setting the basics clear?
Can you go back on that question?
So I'm just saying that per the ordinary or the layman's understanding, this should be a simple process. Now it's developed into a complicated thing where the president is saying that the legal suits at the court, I can't sign. You go to the court, this is what you're hearing. I'm just asking your opinion as a lawyer, how you're interpreting how things have just transformed around this simple issue.
The rule of law. At least nobody is holding a cutlass or a stick. We are testing the processes. Our institutions are strong. So we will continue to use the institutions of state, i.e. the court, to seek to push and convince the court that our point of view is better and more persuasive. At the end of the day, we cannot, of course, force the court to agree with us. But at least posterity will see that people went to court and tested the law in respect of this matter. And that is how you build democracy. You don't build democracy by putting your hand in between your legs and saying that you are going to sit down and look on if certain things are going on that you feel strongly about. Once you feel strongly about it, go to the law court and test the law.
Nick, we'll appreciate your time on this matter. Yes. And since you're going to appeal...
Let me add that in the same way, quickly, in the same way, just last week, my client went to court and got the Supreme Court to agree that payment of salaries to first and second ladies is unconstitutional. It's the same way we must believe in the system, that the system has a way and an ability to check itself. So we will not say yesterday, the court agreed that today, the court disagreed that, we are bastardizing the court. No. We will continue to go through the court system because I believe that at the end of the day, the court will give us that.
Appreciate your time. And any timelines as to this, the appeal that you're going to?
We filed and luckily this is not a very complicated appeal. The record of appeal is very small. So if we get the cooperation of the registry of the court, we probably should have this dealt with before the end of the legal year, which is July. We intend to really move this along quickly.
As quickly as possible. Thank you very much for joining us. Nick Ocansey Adu is lead counsel for Nelson Roxanne Dafiame, member of parliament for the South Dai constituency, and also the plaintiff in this matter, and the lawyers for the member of parliament have been also indicating their intention to go to the Court of Appeal after an Accra High Court dismissed an application seeking to compel the president to declare his intent to sign or otherwise the anti-LGBTQ plus bill after receiving it from parliament. So that's what we've been having the conversation on here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, and also on W93.5 in Y and beyond. Now let's go to some of the stories. And earlier today, the NDC, the opposition NDC, has called for the immediate termination of all contractual agreements between the Strategic Mobilization Limited and the Ghana Revenue Authority without further delay. Now, according to the party, the Revenue Assurance Agreement did not have parliamentary approval and was therefore illegal and null and void. It says any payments made on the basis of the so-called agreement must be retrieved. It follows partial release of the KPMG audit report by President Akufo-Addo that revealed SML received over 1 billion Ghana cedis as compensation to, even though the company had partially fulfilled its contractual obligations. Speaking on Monday's edition of the Moment of Truth series earlier today, National Communications Officer of the NDC, Sami Jemfi, says the contract was designed to fleece the people of Ghana of their tax revenues. He also says claims that SML's work contributed to revenue growth in the petroleum downstream were false.
In which serious country can this happen? You help the government to collect revenue of 2.4 billion and your share is 1 billion. Is there any company in the world that collects such an outrageous fee? So clearly, the justification being mounted by governments is patently flawed on the basis of that publication from the presidency itself. And we are asking, ladies and gentlemen, what exactly did SML do to deserve such a gargantuan fee? This is simply incredible and defies logic. It is evidently clear, friends from the media, from the above enumerated facts, that the justifications being mounted by government for the continuation of SML's downstream petroleum audit services are completely untenable and hogwash. No patriotic Ghanaian or discerning mind will support or justify this unconscionable nation-wrecking transaction. It will.
Sami Jamfi there also maintains the next NDC administration will not recognize the contract between SML and GRA if not terminated by the president before election 2024, and adding that all persons connected to the deal will be prosecuted. This is what the NDC is demanding.
We in the NDC hereby demand 4 things. Number 1, the immediate termination of all, not some, all illegal contracts entered into between SML and the GRA. Here we are talking about their transaction audit agreement, their external price verification agreements, and their downstream petroleum audit agreement. Some may say that, oh, the agreements have ended. We don't care. Once the agreements were illegal, they were never deemed to have existed. And that is how government must treat it and do the needful. Number 2, the retrieval of all payments by government to SML under the illegal agreements which have occasioned a huge financial loss to the state. So once the agreements are illegal, then the state cannot respect those agreements, because this is a country governed by the rule of law. An agreement signed in contravention of the laws of this country cannot stand the test of law in this country. And therefore, any payments made under these illegal agreements must be retrieved. Our courts have had the opportunity times without number to pronounce on this. This is the same reason why the courts asked for the state to retrieve monies paid to Oyome, Waterville, Isofoton, and so on, because they were paid under unlawful agreements. Number 3, the NDC demands the immediate publication of the full KPMG investigative reports on the dealings between SML and the GRA. Mr. President, why are you hiding that report?
Sami Jamfi there, and that comes on the heels. This demand of the full report being published by the president comes on the heels of demands by others, including society organizations that have demanded that this full report be published. The Vice President of Imani Africa, Bright Simmons, also gives some details to buttress the calls for some further better particulars into exactly what KPMG found in auditing this SML GRA deal and the many questions of transparency that have been raised by some persons who have been looking at this deal quite closely. This is what Bright Simmons said to me earlier.
Industry, and which has hired or engaged multiple vendors, at the very least 2 main vendors, actually maybe 3 more main vendors, the ones that are running the ERDMS, the ones that are doing the, in which nobody had knew before, and which we now know is owned by some timber merchant and a relative. So this company then, now having been established, inserted into the auditing space in Ghana, then succeeds in getting itself involved in the downstream sector on the basis that the existing companies that are doing the tracking themselves could be shady, and so they will come in and then introduce additional flow meters and things to track the fuel. The issue that then arises is whether or not, and there are 3 key issues, whether or not this company has any track record in this space, and there's a reason why we must trust them more than we must trust other auditing companies in the country, including those that are already doing this kind of work, those that are providing the ERDMS, those like Rock Africa that are providing flow meters. Remember that the MP is already spending large amount of money implementing these flow meters in every depot in the country, both at the retail end and at the wholesale end. And they are connecting all of that infrastructure together using the ERDMS. So while we are talking about SML, more government money is being spent to do exactly the objectives that SML is purportedly achieving on behalf of Ghana, of government of Ghana. Now, the question therefore is why? What is special about SML? Who are they? What nature of, what is their technology? Where did it come from? That makes them so superior that something that the MP and everybody else has already been doing is considered inferior, that until they come in, and if what the MP and the rest are doing are inferior, then why are we still paying for that? Why don't we just simply throw all of them out and let SML alone do the job? So that's the first issue that arises. The second issue that arises is that then the decision was made that they will be paid based on the volumes of products that they are more or less monitoring. So essentially, if they monitor 100 million, they get paid for 100 million liters. That makes no sense whatsoever, because the assumption being, and we'll go into this in perhaps some detail, the assumption being that if the fuel consumption goes up and taxes go up, that must be due to their work. Now, we challenge that, in great detail, and I hope that the chance will come in to explain. So that is how this company came in, and that is why the issue around their involvement became problematic. Because when the Fourth Estate did their investigation, they confirmed that the multiple levels at MPA level, GRE level, and the rest of it, that the existing framework is what was being used to determine taxes in the country and to track and monitor taxes in the country. And that existing framework is already integrated in the ecosystem. So whatever SML was doing was not what is being used. They were not producing the information that was being used to determine taxes in the country. So you have to ask yourself then, on what basis can we attribute anything to them of value, right? Because if you think of it very critically, they've not been able to provide any information about under declaration that have led to any prosecutions that show that some companies in the sector are under declaring or they are hiding. When it comes to revenue losses due to tax issues, some of it is plainly a matter of the companies not being able to pay, even when you know that they've loaded the goods, the fuel, and they've sold the fuel. So those losses are not solved by knowing that they have the liability. We already know they have the liability. So what exact contribution have they made to this process of trying to make sure that taxes are paid? For which reason we should pay them 1 billion Ghana cedis over the last 5 years. Think about it, 1 billion Ghana cedis. So that really is where we are in terms of an understanding the sudden involvement of this company in this.
I see. But then again, you see, right, that 1 billion Ghana cedis, they in their response say that the KPMG report did not factor in the taxes they have paid to the GRA plus the investments that they have made. But in the same response of SML, they are rejecting the claims by KPMG as captured in the president's statement that it partially delivered on several requirements regarding the transaction agreement. In fact, they say that they delivered fully on their obligations outlined in the contract. That is captured in the statement that they, SML, issued. And you, based on what you're saying, it does not reflect the reality of the situation?
Well, I've just explained to you, right, that in the setup that we have for fuel, if you bring the fuel from overseas, it's captured in the current ICOMS arrangement. And that, if GRA is doing its work well, if the ICOMS platform is working, and it cannot be that it's working for everything, but only for fuel, right? So whatever it is that is happening in milk, in sugar, in whatever, is what is happening in fuel. Now, the argument is that if the ICOMS system is working, we know the fuel that arrived. And the system has now been configured such that we track the fuel from the port to the different depots and eventually to the retail outlets. And you cannot load fuel in this country except you register it in the ERDMS. And there are flow meters that have been implemented by Rock Africa and others in the depots. If all of that is not working, was a contract and they delivered according to the contract. It's meaningless if the contract doesn't make sense. is the case of redundant addition of SML, when we are paying money for a system that's already end-to-end. And if the system is per chance, not end-to-end, then why don't we extend the existing system to be end-to-end? Because we are already paying for it. Why do we have to bring another vendor to install another set of flow meters all over the place and then claim that they are the ones that are doing the end-to-end verification? Then we should stop everybody else in the system, throw them all out, and leave them alone.
I see.
Or that is not clear to you, Alfred?
Well, yes, it is clear. But then again, SML, and I'm referring to their responses, indicating their productive performance was the basis for subsequent recommendation and awarding of the downstream petroleum audit contract. That's what they're saying, that there's proven record of their performance. But with what you're saying, raising fundamental questions about even the specific impact that they have had, it begs the question as to exactly what is happening, whether if the MPA system is working, as was captured in the documentary, and whether there was a real need for another third-party arrangement when there was a system in place, as was outlined by Mustafa Hamid or Dr. Mustafa Hamid in that particular documentary that we played.
No, because we've had increases in the past when we didn't have them. So if you think that you are stopping under declaration, then what we need is a model that gives us some insight into what is the average under declaration in the market. And that will have come when we were doing the transition, when they first came. Because when they first came, they implemented these systems. The question is, how many companies did they catch doing under declaration with their new systems? That will have given us the baseline. That, okay, based on we have a sense of how much under declaration is in the system. So think of it like we all consume 100 liters. But the truth is that we consume 105 liters. But because some people don't disclose the 5 liters, that's how much we are losing. And the tax corresponding to that is 10 cedis. If you come into the system and the increase of fuel consumption goes to 120, we don't say that all that 120 is your work. We say that, okay, it has increased by 20, but if you are not there, 5 liters will not have been accounted for. So your contribution is 5 out of the 20, not the 120. We cannot base our analysis on your work on 120. And we cannot base on 20. Because two things, that consumption may have increased anyway. And then secondly, we don't know for sure that every single liter that increased in the consumption of, that increase in consumption, every liter increase in consumption will have led to evasion of tax. You are getting the logic. So think about it very carefully. There are two things there to bear in mind. Because of increasing in the volume of cars, increasing the number of consumption, other economic factors, some products will see greater demand. When they see greater demand, some people may not pay tax, but the vast majority will pay tax. Well, the majority of Ghanaians didn't pay tax on fuel, etc., etc. The system will have collapsed. We'll have seen that already in the falling taxes from petroleum. So some people will not pay tax, but they are not the majority. So we need to say, okay, and that increase, what percentage of it will have been lost in terms of tax take because people refuse to disclose?
That's Bright Simmons, the Vice President of Imani Africa, joining us on this matter here on Hot Edition, still raising those fundamental questions about value for money, and then also the issue of transparency in this SML GRA deal, also adding up to the calls by the NDC for the full publication of the SML GRA audit report by KPMG is something that we're going to stay the steam on here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7.
Indeed, and some breaking news reaching us. We understand that 5 people have died and 14 others in critical condition after a gruesome accident which occurred at Dadring, that's near Obuasi in the Ashanti region. We do understand that the accident involved a number of cars, including a trotro, we understand a truck, and some other saloon vehicles. We also have information. Yes, so I just mentioned the saloon vehicle there, and what we're hearing from eyewitnesses is that the Toyota vehicle which was involved in that accident was traveling at high speed and lost control, veering off its lane and crashing into the trailer at Dajing. And what we are learning again is that there were about 20 passengers on board of that vehicle, including children, and like I just told you, 14 survived, but with some critical injuries, while 4 individuals tragically lost their lives at the scene, and the 5th person apparently died when he or she was taken to the hospital. So that's the information we're receiving. That accident there, unfortunately, 5 people losing their lives. And if you're watching us on Facebook, we're showing you some images there. Like I said, it included a number of vehicles, a trailer, a saloon car, a Toyota, which we do understand was the trotro, or the public vehicle, and 5 people dead, 14 others injured. And we understand there were about 20 people on that vehicle, out of which the 5 died and 14 received various degrees of injury. So that's some sad news coming in there.
And if you go on our Facebook page, we're showing you pictures of this rather unfortunate incident. We're also just getting some news, Beatrice. It doesn't look too good. A fuel tanker exploded along the Kumasi-Accra highway, and responding to the swift calls for emergency, the firefighters from the Suhum Fire Station, led by SCNO 2 Dakwa Prince Ofobi, we understand, have arrived at the scene. There's an eyewitness who's just giving us this information right now. The tanker involved was a MAN diesel fuel truck bearing the registration number GS 5343 2018. Despite the gravity of the situation, the firefighters managed to contain the flames within a matter of minutes, and the Ghana National Fire Service confirmed indeed this to us right now, to our producer, that there were no reported injuries. However, the cause of the explosion remains under investigation. So that's the information we're hearing right now of this incident, that a fuel tanker that has been reportedly exploded along the Kumasi-Accra highway. The fire service has responded swiftly to put the situation under control, and we are still monitoring to get some more information on this matter.
Let's bring you some more. And an alliance of Ghanaians living abroad, the Progressive Alliance Movement, is threatening to cite the Electoral Commission for contempt of the Supreme Court. They argue that the Commission has disregarded the court's judgment to implement the Representation of the People's Amendment Law, which allows Ghanaians living abroad to vote in national election. President of the movement, Dr. Kofi Boateng, says the EC is on a mission to continuously deprive Ghanaians of their voting rights despite massive contribution to the economy.
We are trying to work within the framework of the Constitution and the laws of Ghana. We are not advocating any violence, of course not, okay? So we went through the court system, the judiciary system. First, we went through Parliament. Parliament made the law in 2006, passed it on to the EC to implement. The EC did not. So we took the EC to court, High Court, we won, all right? The EC asked for extension because we brought a contempt of court against the EC led by lawyer Samson Anyinini, and still the EC didn't do anything. So what do we have to do? Clearly, by the statement that Jean Mensah just made, that the EC categorically has no plans to implement, and I'm quote, to implement ROPA for 2024, that means she's still acting within the contempt of court. No, the court said do it starting with the 2020 election. You didn't. You asked for extension to show the constitutional instrument to Parliament, and so we can move forward. You didn't. And now you come out to say categorically, who is Jean Mensah to make that categorical statement anyway?
You heard Dr. Kofi Boateng. He's the president of the Progressive Alliance Movement. That's an alliance of Ghanaians living abroad.
Talk about the Electoral Commission. An Accra High Court has granted bail to one of the 4 persons nabbed over the Electoral Commission stolen laptops and biometric voter registration kits. That's a BVR kits. Now, Joseph Blankson Adumaji, a database administrator, was granted bail by the High Court last week. Adumaji's counsel informed the Dansoman Circuit Court that they were yet to serve the High Court proceedings on this particular matter on the police in order to execute the bail, hence the absence of a client in court. Meanwhile, the 3 other accused persons were remanded into lawful custody by the Dansoman Circuit Court when the matter was called. The 3 accused persons are Philip Tete, a 26-year-old casual worker, Benjamin Fienyi, a security man, and Clifford Yeboah, a student. At today's proceedings at the Dansoman Circuit Court, Clifford Yeboah's lawyer repeated his application for Yeboah, saying his client walked as a free man to court but was lawful in that act of being remanded by the court. According to the counsel, Yeboah has forfeited his examinations as a result of the matter and drew the court's attention to the High Court bail extended to Adumaji. Defense counsel therefore prayed for bail for Yeboah, saying items found on Yeboah have been retrieved and their value was not more than 2,000 Ghana cedis. Prosecution led by Chief Inspector Christopher Wonder said he was surprised that the High Court had granted bail to one of the accused persons, looking at the nature of the case, which was of national interest. So that's what's happening right now with respect to these persons who are standing trial for the theft of some laptops and BVRs belonging to the Electoral Commission, and it's fundamental to the security of our elections, is it not?
Indeed. Yes, let's bring you some labour issues, because the Technical Committee reviewing the Labour Act 651 is proposing that employers assign reasons when dismissing workers. They want that, the committee wants that in the new act. Now, the committee says this will build workplace confidence and also improve mutual cooperation at the work environment. General Secretary of GAO, who is Organised Labour's representative on the Technical Committee, Edward Kariwe, spoke exclusively with our Labour correspondent, Daniel Poku, in Accra.
The Industrial Labour Act 651 says that an employer can hire and fire a worker without assigning reasons. It also says that the employer may terminate appointment of an employee based on gross incompetence and on health grounds. But the Technical Committee reviewing the Labour Act 651 is suggesting that adequate reasons should be assigned by the employer during the termination of the appointment.
The employer to, for instance, terminate without giving reasons, we think that is not proper. You know, that is not proper. There must always be reason for laying off someone. Some category of workers are also excluded from redundancy. We thought those things, every worker should be allowed to benefit from a redundancy exercise, but it will now be sometimes fixed term workers, contract workers, and so on. They are all still workers.
Another major inclusion, the Technical Committee has proposed the need for civilians and the security agencies to be allowed to form unions. Already, the Trade Union Congress is in the Supreme Court demanding a constitutional interpretation on sections of the Labour Act 651, which debar the rights of workers.
Maternity leave itself is narrow as it stands now. Who can benefit from maternity leave? But we are now trying to add other things like, for instance, what happens when you have a cesarean, when there's a complication with your delivery, when there's a miscarriage, do you still qualify to have what? A maternity leave? All those knotty issues need to be addressed in our current law.
The committee is also suggesting paternity leave should be captured in the new act, while women with complications during childbirth should be granted leave days.
Everybody on that institution cannot join the trade union. No, there must be some categories of people under the institution who can join the trade union and who cannot join the trade union. But to have an umbrella, provision excluding everybody under those institutions from joining the trade union, I think that will be causing an injustice.
The Technical Committee is expected to conclude the draft document and submit to government by the end of this week.
Daniel Opoku filed that report. Now, the Mental Health Authority has called for the 1% COVID-19 levy to be channeled into the funding of mental health services. Now, speaking at the inaugural launch of the month of May as Mental Health Month, Board Chair of the authority, Estelle Apia, said that the move will help address some of the funding gap affecting their operations.
The financing of mental health is a constant challenge that the authority is facing. I think the idea of the 1% COVID levy being changed to 1% for mental health is a wonderful idea, and the Mental Health Authority Board will move with that.
The CEO of the authority, Professor Pinaman Apau, is baffled that despite years of the establishment of the Mental Health Fund, there's still no source of funding for it.
Funding is still a major challenge for us. It's just that we try. The little we get, we try to use it so that we get the maximum out of it. We've been lobbying that some of these levies be used for the Mental Health Authority Fund. So the COVID levy, could we get a percentage? We are also asking for the what we call the sin taxes, taxes on alcohol, on tobacco and all that. Because let's face facts, the complications come to us for us to resolve. So why don't we get some percentage coming to the authority just to fund us?
President of the Ghana Psychiatric Association, Dr. Collins Bedwajiman, recommends the move be done as soon as possible to help improve upon mental health service delivery in the country.
Let's redirect it to 1% mental health service levy. No Ghanaian will complain, and I'm confident it will reposition our healthcare service delivery so we can have total health, and not just physical health, but it goes along with mental health of all Ghanaians. Why scrap it if it can help address the 90% treatment gap that Ghanaians are facing? Now, think about it. We have a lot of young ones who are now they are just allowing themselves to be taken away by behavioral addiction, excessive indulgence in the use of internet that is affecting their mental health. There's a lot of work we need to do. This particular 1% levy can support the training of human resource. It can support research to be able to understand where our priorities are, that we need to actually channel our effort to be able to support the developmental agenda of Ghana.
Meanwhile, the WHO has estimated that about 13% of Ghanaians suffer from a mental health disorder. Listen to this person speaking about it.
We think that it will really improve the management of mental health issues, the education on mental health issues within the country, and also help break the barriers on stigma within the country. Actually, the authority has been really concerned with the fact that mental illnesses are on the increase within the country, and yet there's no commensurate mental health education amongst the populace. And that's why we thought about this initiative. We hope that this would increase the mental health, should I say, literacy within the populace, and hopefully that will break the stigma that mental health issues face.
Special guest speaker and wife of Otumfuo Osei Tutu II, Lady Julie Osei Tutu, said there is the need for an open dialogue on mental health to break the stigma.
Cornerstone of overall well-being, yet it is often overlooked and stigmatized in our society. By shining a light on mental health issues and promoting open dialogue, we can begin to break down the barriers of stigma and discrimination that prevent individuals from seeking help and accessing the support they need. It is my fervent hope that throughout our collective efforts, we can create a future where mental health is no longer stigmatized and every individual is treated with dignity and respect.
And you heard that Lady Julia Osei-Tutu, she's the wife of Otumfuo Osei-Tutu II.
So live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, and also on W93.5 in Y and beyond. We're going for the business news now with the head of, and we're going for the business news now, and Michael Ogbodu is standing by. We'll give you details of it shortly, and then also we'll go to the sports news, and we'll come back with campaign trails. Stay with us.
Hello there, good evening and welcome to the business segment here on Hot Edition. Coming up tonight, Acting Chief Executive Officer of Dalex Finance says Ghana's over-reliance on Eurobonds to stabilize the cedi derailed all efforts for the country to export more. I am Michael Obodo. I'll bring you details of this and more shortly. Please stay. Thank you for staying with us. Straight into our top story. And the Acting Chief Executive Officer of Dalex Finance, Joe Jackson, is expressing concern that Ghana's reliance on Eurobonds to stabilize the cedi is hurting the country's export efforts. When a country issues a Eurobond, it is basically borrowing money from foreign investors. This can be a helpful way for a country to raise money for development projects or to cover a budget deficit. However, Joe Jackson is worried about the drawbacks of Ghana's issuance of Eurobonds.
The Eurobond has given us an easy way out, and we have left out concerted efforts to export more, to improve local content, to retain more of our exports, so that long-term we can stabilize the value of the cedi. And we keep forgetting that that is an important long-term objective, that the Eurobond, despite all its attractiveness and all its seemingly easy way to stabilize your country, there will always be a day when the money flies out. We've seen that happen in Argentina. We've seen that happen in Greece. We've seen that happen in Tanzania and Uganda. So it always happens. And so one of the things we must look at as we go forward is what are going to be the ways in which the next regime or over the next 4 years or whatever time frame makes sense, we're going to restart a program to improve our export capacity.
So that was Acting Chief Executive Officer of Dalex Finance, Joe Jackson. Now, Ghana's stock market saw a slight decline last week, with the GSE Composite Index dipping 0.09 points, representing a 0.003 percentage point, close at 3,504.25. Despite the small drop, the index remains positive year to date with a return of 11.95%. There is more in the following News Desk report. We'll bring you that insert shortly.
The stock index also experienced
we'll bring you that insert now.
Decline of 0.01 percentage points compared to last 2 weeks. However, its year-to-date performance sits at negative 7.51%. For losers, CAL and JLD both saw price drops. CAL decreased by 0.01 cedis to 0.39 cedis, while JLD took a steeper tumble of 7.85 cedis, closing at 314 cedis. For the gainer, GCB was the lone bright spot, rising by 0.02 cedis to close at 4.22 cedis. The total market capitalization of the Ghana Stock Exchange decreased from the previous week, finishing at 78.33 billion cedis. Both total trade turnover and total volumes traded were significantly lower last week compared to the previous week. MTN Ghana emerged as the most traded stock in volume terms, while GLD topped the value trader chart. GWEL came in second with 887,785 shares traded worth 1,331,677 cedis, 50 pesos.
So that was a news desk report on Ghana's slight decline on the stock market. Now, former Finance Minister Setekpe is advising the government to prioritize responsible debt management and explore alternative funding sources beyond short-term treasury bills. According to him, the country stands in danger by relying largely on T-bills for financing. He made these remarks during a media dialogue on Ghana's International Monetary Fund program.
For 4 years, we are going to be, as I projected, around 88. And we are not going to have market access with that. How are we going to finance our budget? Continuing with treasury bills, a 3-year instrument. We started the treasury bills from last year, I believe somewhere around May also. So it's almost a year now. I don't think that we've redeemed any, or if at all, much of it. And so what we have done is that if you take 3 months into 1 year, we have issued, 4 cycles, of treasury bills. And we are turning it into long-term instruments, into, Bank of Ghana notes of 1 year. That's what it means. The first ones are about a year if we have not redeemed them at higher interest rates. And we are going to be borrowing, at those high interest rates to redeem even debt, at low interest rates like those for the bilateral creditors, which we are supposed, multilateral, which we are supposed to be paying. The multilateral. No, I don't think, I think it's a bit optimistic for me, looking at the numbers we have now. Of course, we can implement significant reforms on our own.
So that was Finance Minister Setekpe bringing an end to the business news here on Hot Edition. For more business stories, please check out our website. It's 3news.com/business. I am Michael Lubudu. Thank you for listening. As always, please stay safe. Up next, the sports, and Billy is on standby to bring you the latest.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the sports segment here on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Billy Shen. Let's start off from a breaking story. Finidi George has been named the new head coach of the Nigerian national team. The 51-year-old George's first matches in charge of the Super Eagles will be the 2026 World Cup qualifiers in June versus South Africa and Benin. Winless Nigeria currently third in Africa's Group C of the 2026 World Cup qualifying. Finidi was an important member of the Nigerian team during the 1990s, appearing in 2 World Cups as a player. But moving on to the CAF competitions. In the CAF Confederation Cup, Dreams FC lost by 3-0 to Zamalek in the second leg of the competition semi-finals at the Baba Yara Sports Stadium. The fans who came in their numbers came to watch Dreams lose, and this is what they had to say after the game.
We couldn't take our chances during the first half. At least we could have buried the game during the first half, but it's okay. We will take it in good faith and prepare towards next season.
We were really expecting much better from Dreams, but we got disappointed when we had these results, but it's okay.
You guys couldn't make it to the finals. Are you disappointed as a fan?
Yes, we are disappointed, of course, yes. Yeah, we are, but everything is fine, so yeah, we will take it like that.
You know something? It seems they were joking with us. So, I mentioned I did. I'm not a boy any day on my high. So, because near my baby, I was thinking, that my baby son and my way. I'm always see a time. So, I'm always see a time.
They are disappointed. Ball ripper, send a for a stadium to
For the numerous people who came here, we were just expecting something, at least a goal. a goal will do.
But they catch and said, do my idea by a month to me and my year. Because we are not dreams in a bow, a gun and demon at the buyer.
Those were the fans there of Dreams FC. They watched Dreams FC concede 3-0 to Zamalek in Kumasi Babayara Sports Stadium on Sunday. Now, to the CAF Champions League, Al Ahly will be participating in their 5th straight final after qualifying, beating their opponents, and they will be facing Esperance in the final later this year. Now, we spoke to sports journalist Maher about Al Ahly's dominance and the dominance of North African sides in the CAF competitions. This is what he had to say.
Yeah, this year again, whatever the Court of Arbitration of Sport decides, we will have 4 teams in the final of both the Champions League and the CAF Confederation Cup. And we thought that this year might be different because when we got to the quarterfinal stage, there were only 2 North African teams, and we saw, 2 Tanzanian clubs in there with Yanga and Simba. We saw Azak Mimosa, we saw Mamelodi Sundowns, and TP Mazembe make up the rest of the quarterfinalists in the Champions League. So we thought maybe the tides are turning a little bit. But what I would like to say is I still think the North African clubs have a winning culture that maybe some clubs around the continent don't just yet. If you want to talk about what happened in Dreams FC yesterday, losing 2-0 at home to Zamalek, it's unacceptable in North Africa. But for me, the most clear-cut, really, example of this is Mamelodi Sundowns. Mamelodi Sundowns are the dominant side in South Africa. They have world-class players. They have great, as big a budget as anybody else in North Africa. And they play the best football. Tactically, they are the best tactical side in Africa. But when you look at how they've done in the last 2 previous editions of the CAF Champions League, they lose in the semifinals each time. And last year it was against Wydad Casablanca, and they conceded 2 goals at home, 1 own goal and 1 goalkeeping mistake. This year, they conceded to Esperance de Tunis on 3 touches. It was a goal kick, and then just 1 touch, and then the player scored, Raid Bouchniba from Esperance de Tunis. And so, they do everything. They do difficult parts, and they do complicated presses and great passing and everything, but then the easy things, when it comes to mental strength in critical moments of the game, I still think there's a way for them to go.
That was Maher, an Algerian journalist who spoke to 3 Sports earlier today. That brings an end to the sports segment here on the 3FM Hot Edition. Of course, the Hot Edition continues with Alfred and Beatrice on standby.
Belashan, thank you very much. With all the news in the world of sports, there's more news on 3 Sports across all social media platforms. Make some time and follow them right there. This is your Election Command Center. Welcome to Campaign Trail here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're also on W 93.5 in Y and beyond. On the Ejiso constituency.
Indeed.
For one good reason.
Yes, all is set for that by-election at Ejiso in the Ashanti region tomorrow, Tuesday, 30th of April. Now, delegates will be choosing a member of parliament to fill the vacant Ejiso seat following the demise of Dr. John Kuma in March. A total of 6 candidates are in the race, 3 of whom are independent candidates. Campaigning officially ended on Sunday, April 28th, that's yesterday. The Electoral Commission, which says it has received all electoral materials in advance, is confident of a smooth process tomorrow. Now, Benjamin Bano Bio is the Ashanti Regional EC boss.
We have every material. in our disposal. They are all at Ejuso. And at dawn, we will be distributing them to the various centers. So there wouldn't be the issue of delays. We have our distribution plan that we are following. And I must tell you, by 6 o'clock, every center will have gotten its material. So there wouldn't be any delays.
That was Benjamin Banobio, who is the Ashanti Regional EC boss. Meanwhile, the Commission has also dispelled claims of working in favor of the candidates of the governing New Patriotic Party. Now, supporters of the independent candidate, Kwabena Owusu-Aduome, one of the front runners in the Ashanti region, have accused his main opponent of working with the EC to rig the elections.
As a commission, we are going to do what we do best. We are going to demonstrate to the general public what the commission have. That is a system that is so transparent and so verifiable that in the end of the exercise, the results that will be declared will be a true reflection of the desire of the people who voted. And to the candidates, I'm just advising them to also trust the system and provide agents who are very effective, who knows the processes and who can defend their rights. It's not just bringing anyone who is noisy or loud and you think you have a good agent. It should be an agent who can differentiate between 69 and 96. And we are going to ensure that things are done in a fair, transparent manner.
You had Benjamin Banobio. He's the Ashanti Regional Electoral Commission boss. Now, one of the independent candidates who is a front runner, Kwadwo Owusu-Aduome, has denied being sponsored by the NDC and the Movement for Change. President Akufo-Addo, addressing a rally yesterday, alleged that the two groups could be behind Mr. Aduome.
Independent since some said that so pay for be said that and one no. So Bano may say, you say, Embasso, but it's also no. And an Amazon of the acquiring ever a juicer. If you buy a year of a day a coin, why or the other churches of force or no, and a year coin. You want to be reason chairman. Yes, I may come far from me. When I said that here, I could be a Ghana, and I'm a man who told me, and yes, the more pro be and the president, MPP president, Akasa. Na to asompe no a ye PMPP ni eno beba no ba be kasa at say.
You had the President Akufo-Addo in summary, in what he said: we do not want any candidate whose background we can't even verify. It can't happen. As in the election of Aduome won't happen, and said that if the people of Ejuso want someone who can speak quote unquote sense to the people, it has to be an NPP candidate.
Well, we'll find out how the constituents have been reacting to this message by the president. And William Evans Inkum has been spending quite some time in the constituency over the last 1 month, and he's joining us on the telephone. We'll appreciate your time here on Election Trail on your Election Command Center. How have the constituents in Ejuso been reacting to this statement by the president that, you know what, if you really want development, don't look beyond the NPP candidate, because Kwabena Owusu-Aduome cannot bring you that development?
Well, absolutely. To some of the constituents, it's quite interesting because some developments in the Ejuso constituency have been linked to Kwabena Owusu-Aduome. Mind you, he only lost his position as the Member of Parliament in 2020 when he lost to the late John Apoche-Kuma during the primaries. But in his 12-year stint as parliamentary candidate for Ejuso constituency, roads and other developmental projects that he has lobbied, and I'm seeing the execution of such projects. in the Joso constituency, something that continues to, play in the minds of some of the constituencies that you describe as die in the wool of Kwabena Ocansey Adu. And these are the very people who have been giving him that level of support and that level of assurance that come what may, they will give him the nod. So, he's enjoying some ride as far as his political exploits in the Joso constituency is concerned.
I see. Now, you've been already speaking to them. You've been testing the pulse of the voters in that constituency. What have you gathered? What's the mood going into tomorrow?
Well, battle ready. Both parties now, it is almost looking like a two-horse race between the MPP, lawyer Kwabena Boateng, and of course, Kwabena Ocansey Adu, the independent candidate. Both party supporters are ready to belong to the various polling stations. You're talking about 204 polling stations in 28 electoral areas with over 106,000 voters ready in. But, well, if you speak to some of the political connoisseurs, as we normally see in by-election, they are not expecting high numbers to pan out at the various polling centers. But from what we are seeing and from what we've been gathering on the ground, I would be surprised to see in excess of 70% voter turnout. I would be surprised. 70%.
That's quite high. A projection. And indeed, you've been interacting with them, so you see the level of interest that the Conservatives have been expressing ahead of tomorrow. But how about the issues surrounding the electoral materials being ready for tomorrow, plus security as well? Because Kwabena Ocansey Adu has been raising some fundamental concerns with respect to that, is it not?
Well, absolutely. So as of yesterday, the ballot papers were meticulously being scrutinized by agents of the political parties and then as well as the independent candidates. They almost spent the entire time there making sure that the serial numbers correspond. And of course, there hasn't been any discrepancies as far as, matching or marking the numbers are concerned. Then, of course, you're also talking about security. I can tell you that, well, per my interaction with some of the security couples, a deployment of 10,000 police personnel are ready, and they have their command center at the Forestry Commission Training Center at the Chankro. This evening, they have been frequenting some of the polling centers, and they are also going to be under their various district commanders, district and divisional commanders. They are going to take charge. I understand the IGP wouldn't be here. Of course, in Kuno we saw him. Of course, Asinov we saw him, but I just constituency, I understand he wouldn't be here. But in his stead, we understand the Director of CID and the Director of Operations will be the one who will be leading the police force. Of course, you also know that the military is on standby.
William, appreciate you. Thank you so much for this. And William Van Sinkum is going to lead the charge with the election commanders in the Joso constituency. William, wish you all the best ahead of tomorrow.
Thank you.
William Van Sinkum is our Northern Bureau Chief there here on your Election Command Center. And Beatrice, if you look at the election results there in that constituency, it's one that the NPP should be able to go to bed or was expected to go to bed and win. But if you look at the kind of activity that has preceded tomorrow, it clearly tells you that the NPP, even though the NDC is not contesting this by-election, it appears there's a lot they have to handle with respect to Kwabena Ocansey Adu, who is the 3-time member of parliament for the constituency, who is now going independent.
Exactly, coming from the same fold. They've seen Femina before.
Indeed. They don't want to say once bitten, twice shy.
Exactly. Now let's stay a bit more on this. We're joined by lawyer Wayo Ganamanti. He is a lawyer with Convention People's Party. Good evening to you. Thank you very much for joining us on Hot Edition. Director of Elections, I believe, of Legal Affairs for the CPP.
No, not the director. I'm a member of the Legal and Constitutional Affairs.
A member. All right. Thank you very much for joining us. So we are getting information that you've withdrawn that suit against the Electoral Commission, which was barring the quote-unquote representative of the CPP as recognized by the EC, but the party did not recognize her. I just want to quote a bit of that suit. It says, based on, that's the last but one actually, based on these happenings and calls, the plaintiff prays to withdraw the instant application and the suit, even though it is clear that the defendant cannot legally conduct the election with an illegitimate candidate purporting to be a constitutionally elected parliamentary candidate in the Ejuso by-election. I pray accordingly. Why this decision?
Thank you very much. You know, as lawyers, we always act on the instructions of our clients. So the Ashanti Regional Chairman of the CPP, Mr. Emmanuel Gallo, who brought the action, which I, as a member of the Legal and Affairs Committee, understand perfectly the constitutional provisions he raised. And after reading those provisions, I was clear in his action. But, I mean, if you continue to peruse the document that you just read from, you will see that I submitted to the court that numerous calls were coming through to him since the day he filed the suit, both from the EC and from other political parties, as well as some of the CPP's own rank and file, our founding fathers, some elders. They have all called upon him that they want the cordial relationship between the EC and the party to remain. They want the party to, even though it's not right that the constitutional provisions are not put forward, but somebody else wants to just single-handedly do things outside the Constitution. So all these calls weighed on him, and sometimes in society, even when you seek to do the right thing, it turns out that people are trying to point fingers at you and then will be tomorrow holding you accountable for even trying to do the right thing. So as legal counsel, our client indicated that he just wants to withdraw this matter, and then let's see how the party will go around such conduct and deal with it.
So let's look at the substantive issue. So this person is still going ahead to represent the CPP. Do we take it that the party is going to just approve her or accept her sort of visa on arrival kind just so she can participate in this by-election tomorrow, or what exactly is happening?
No, my dear sister. The point is that whatever stand the CPP would take or anybody would take, even of which the EC has taken, is illegal. It's illegitimate. You have an illegitimate person in there. The reason why, as counsel, I'm fortified in this, and with my clients, we are fortified, even though he's withdrawn, is simply that a certain constitutional provision was not followed. If you live in Adenta, and Adenta has to go for a parliamentary candidate, a PC, the rules are clear. All political parties go for primaries. Even in the Ejuso case we are talking about, the MPP, they went for a primary and elected somebody. Why have we put our primaries aside? So whatever it is still unconstitutional, whoever is put out there. And the law is very clear that the fact that you have done something, it doesn't become right. Parliament cannot make a law to clothe what is wrong. So therefore, the court, especially the Supreme Court, will not interpret the law to clothe what is wrong. So what is wrong is wrong. If it's unconstitutional, if the said Estause has not gone through an Ejuso constituency conference for her to be elected by the Ejuso constituency of CPP members themselves, just like a primary in any other political party structure. And then her name forwarded by Mr. Gallo, the regional chairman, to the CPP headquarters, where the CPP Central Committee will look at that person and consider the person approved the person and present the person to the EC. That has not been done. We cannot do anything to right that wrong. It is still unconstitutional. It is still illegitimate in respect of the CPP Constitution.
We'll have to end it.
That is the bitter truth, yes.
All right, we'll have to end it here. Thank you very much. That was, you heard there, he is representing lawyer Wayo Ghana Manti. He is with the Legal and Constitutional Affairs team of the CPP, giving his view there. Let's have a quick word from Dr. Kwesi Amache, who is a political analyst with the KNUST. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us on Hot Edition.
It's a pleasure.
Less than 24 hours for this all-important by-election in Ejisu to happen. Looking at the developments that have occurred so far, with a poll coming out from Global Info Analytics and a whole government machinery going to Ejisu to campaign, how do you think these would influence how electorates choose who becomes their MP for the area?
Well, it will definitely, have some significant impact on them. And, given current developments in the country generally, the MPP cannot afford to lose the by-elections, at Ejisu. There are a lot at stake for them, and it means so much. They want to win it to boost their own confidence and also to at least give themselves some sort of understanding that all is not lost in Ashanti region. So we weren't surprised when, during the last engagement they had, who matters in the party came down there.
There are those who are suggesting that this election is very unpredictable because the person who is also a front runner has been a three-member MP or three-time MP before, is coming from the camp of the MPP, and therefore the party just cannot go to sleep. Do you agree with that argument?
I do agree, and it goes beyond, this gentleman is also coming from the camp of the MPP. When he was a member of parliament, he endeared himself to the constituency. He served the community so well. You realize that current developments in the MPP has become such that, especially in Ashanti region, the person who eventually wins the primary does not necessarily represent the favorite of the constituency. They manage to get their way around the limited nature of the people who do the votes. And so this dilemma is what they are going to face now, because Ojo Aduni was a community person. And now, even if, his predecessors had done something significant, the party will do that and use that to get the electorate to at least maintain their confidence in them. They met yesterday and they said a lot of things. They couldn't come out, with specific references to, notable developments that one would want to call landmarks from the work of the, late member of parliament. So that adds to the dilemma they are in. So also Adobe is a community person, and he's really, he's harping on that. He's banking on that, and he's addressing, the people, mentioning the things he has done, even when the NDC was in office, that he was able to, get the NDC government to support development project A, development project B. So yes, he's giving them a good run for their money.
Despite the Global Info Analytics report or survey that I talked about, which actually mentioned that there would be a slim chance of Boateng winning, that's the MPP candidate, could there be surprises, really? Because you're looking at MPP, quote-unquote MPP against MPP. And I just want to bring you some statistics in terms of polls results that we've seen in that constituency. Yes, the NDC is not taking part in this, but in 2012, MPP had 81% as against 18, which was gained by the NDC. 2016, 14.6 for NDC, 83.8 for MPP. 2008, 15 for NDC, 82% for MPP. And then 2020, 82.8 for the MPP and 17.2 for the NDC. Do you think that there could be some surprises where Eduomi could really win despite the Info Global Analytics survey that has come out?
Well, you can't play down the significance of such surveys. But then, given the fact that no matter you relation, however scientific, we could also, have surprises. You could. The individuals who come out to be interviewed might not necessarily, simply reflect, if you like, rank and file. I don't know the size of, the sampling size that was used, and the constituency is very, broad, and they cover let me push this way. The sampling frame, you know, was it representative enough? Whatever it is, the grounds are such that, to me, it's going to be, you know, difficult to stick one neck out and say that this candidate is coming out a winner. I think you want to wait, you know, for the outcome to be able to appreciate the dynamics that played out to give us the, you know, the third outcome.
It's going to be difficult, and I believe you're saying that in terms of the voting pattern that we may see tomorrow. But generally, what kind of atmosphere do you expect as a political scientist for this very by-election?
I expect the place to be tense, given the fact that allegations have been made that, you know, the party has plans to rig the elections. And that, to me, is something, because I have difficulty working with that, because it does depend on the integrity of the EC. The EC has its own credibility to, you know, maintain, and so far they have done well, and I don't think they want to allow these by-elections to have any dent on their credibility. So I expect the place to be tense. We are looking forward to seeing some of the allegations. Are we going to have security people, you know, manning the polls for their party? Are we going to have some sort of, you know, pockets of violence, you know, emerging? I expect the place to be tense initially, but maybe when it turns out to be that, you know, the accusations simply, you know, have nothing to, you know, support it, then I think by the midday, you know, the tension will go down. But initially, I expect the place to be tense.
The tension will go down before everything comes to an end. Thank you very much, Dr. Kwesi Amakye. He's a political analyst with the KNUST. And that's how we end Hot Edition here on 3FM. I did this with Alfred Ocansey. My name is Beatrice Adu. Log on to 3news.com for more news. Have a good evening.